This lesson is going to look at adding and subtracting integers. For adding, there are two rules. The first rule is if the signs are the same, you need to add the numbers and keep their sign. So for example, if we had 2 plus 3, you've added those since you were in probably kindergarten or first grade. Both numbers are positive, so you add their sign, or you add the numbers, so which 2 plus 3 is 5. And then since the sign is positive, the 5 is positive. The same works if the numbers are both negative. So if I have negative 2 plus negative 3, I would still add this together, which would give me negative 5, because I add them, which gives me 5, and then I keep the sign, which gives me the negative. The second rule for addition is if the signs are different, you have to take the numbers and subtract, but you keep the sign of the bigger number. So if we're looking at the example 2 plus negative 3, I have to subtract because I have one positive and one negative, so 3 minus 2 is 1. But I have more negatives, or the negative number is larger than the positive, so my answer would be negative 1. With the other example, I have 3 positives and I'm adding 2 negatives. So again, I still subtract because the signs are different, so 3 minus 2 is 1. But I have more positives, so there would be a positive 1 instead of a negative 1 on that example. Now let's take a look at subtraction. Subtraction and addition are very similar in the fact that you end up changing subtraction into addition before you actually do it. So the rule for subtraction is, in short, keep, change, change. What that means is that you have to keep the first number the same, you change the subtraction sign to addition, and then you change the sign of the second number. So again, in short, that's keep, change, change. So let's take a look at some examples. So if we're taking a look at examples like this, the first one is negative 7 minus 5. I would keep the negative 7, the subtraction would change into addition, and then the 5 would become negative. Now, we then have to follow the rules for addition. So both my numbers now are negative, so it means we have to add the numbers. So 7 plus 5 is 12, and then the sign is negative, so my answer is negative 12. If I'm looking at 11 minus 14, I keep the 11, the subtraction changes to addition, and then the 14 becomes negative. This time we have one positive number and one negative number. So I have to take those two values and subtract. So 14 minus 11 is 3. And then we have more negatives. The 14 is bigger than the 11. So my answer should be negative 3. Same thing if I'm looking at the 8 minus 15. I would keep the 8. The subtraction changes to addition. And then the 15 becomes negative. Now my signs are different, so I have to take those numbers and subtract. So 15 minus 8 is 7, and then there are more negatives, so the negatives goes with my answer. Then if we're looking at the next one, 4 minus 12, I keep the 4. The subtraction changes to addition, and then the 12 becomes its opposite, which is negative. So then again, my signs are different, so we subtract. So 12 minus 4 is 8. And I have more negatives because the 12 is bigger than the 4. So then my answer should be negative 8. Then my next one, 5 minus negative 3. I would keep the 5. The subtraction would change to addition. And the negative 3 would become its opposite, which is positive 3. Now that should look and be a lot easier for you to actually calculate, because we've been adding positive numbers together for a long time. 5 plus 3 gives you 8. Then if we're looking at the final example, I have negative 9 minus negative 2. I would keep the negative 9, the minus would change into plus, and the negative 2 would change into positive 2. Now our signs are different, so that means I have to subtract these numbers. So 9 minus 2 is 7, and then I have more negatives than I do positives, so my 7 should be negative.